Oh, welcome to Monday. Man, knew I forgot something. There you go. Happy Monday, everybody. It's a Monday. You can tell. Bases dropped in Soccer's morning show. John here, you there. And you know what we're going to talk about a lot this morning. And I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Just go ahead and line it up. Line it up. Put your comments in. Go from there. Yep, Hutch definitely is Mayhem Monday. We'll talk about Atlanta United. And obviously, you know, we'll go through the match. We have the goals to talk about for Atlanta United. We'll walk through the match, get your thoughts, and we will look at Major League Soccer. We'll look at the NWSL, which had its bit of chaos. We'll look at the USL Championship, which after Atlanta United ended, still had plenty of time to go. No, well, Abby, running late. Where is your clock? My clock says 07. Yeah, my clock says 07. Anything is humanly possible on a Monday. So we welcome in Jarrett Smith as well here on a Monday. And it is as Hutch refers to it, Jarrett, it is a Mayhem Monday in a bunch of different fronts, but obviously we'll talk most of our time about Atlanta United today.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just happens, baby.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're the bear. Sometimes you get the bear. Sometimes the bear gets you.
Yeah. What is it? Mark Knopfler once said, sometimes you're the Louisville Slugger. Sometimes you're the ball.
Bug, windshield, whatever you want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
C'est la vie.
Yeah. Well,
anywho.
Yeah. Lurch said it best. Well, and like I said, we'll go over the numbers. And we'll go ahead and spot folks some time to put their thoughts in the Twitch pitch. So for opening kickoff this morning, brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. There's your QR code for those of you who are watching on Twitch. Don't forget, thanks to everybody who has started their day with Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. Use the code SoccerDownHere15, and they in turn take 10%. Now, you get 15% off of your deal. Then they, in turn, take 10% reinvested into youth games, youth initiatives that they have earmarked. Very, very cool stuff from our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. So, like I said, I'm letting folks line up in the comment section. But, now that we've had, almost 12 hours to kind of sift things through.
It did about 12 hours from 12 hours ago on the dot.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been about 12 hours since the final whistle.
Yeah,
of the season.
Yeah. So, what did you think of the chaos from Sunday night that was up there at lower.com?
You can't. I guess the 30,000 foot view is you can't ship 3 goals in the first half. But not all goals are created equally. Because you had the first goal, you get turned over in a place you don't want to get turned over right against your own goal, which is kind of funny because you did that to them in 2017. I vividly remember them scoring on Columbus in 2017, doing something very similar, forcing that turnover in that spot. And then Nagby just pulls it across goal. And you can't give that up that early in the game. So as we talked about this Thursday or Friday, that the longer you could either play with a lead or keep it even, the more you could put them under duress because the pressure was on them. And the pressure was on them. They handled it really, really well. And getting out to a 2-goal lead early helps that. The second goal, I'm not really blaming anyone on because that's just that's an amazing shot.
Yeah.
Man, that's like one where you actually have to kind of tip your hat and be like,
yep.
You know what? I don't know what to do with that.
Yep.
But the fact that you gave up the first one, playing, Miles playing that pass on the ground into trouble, it made the hole that much deeper. Then you start pressing. Actually created more chances than you did in the first matchup with this team. In game one, I thought they did a much better job of like trying to force the issue and trying to actually create opportunities. And in fact, I thought with Atlanta, I thought one of the things that was most annoying was the chances they left out there. Because there's a couple of instances out there where, it's going in right before halftime, Yorgos gets a chance on goal, and I thought like when he did it, like you gotta play in Shande, or not Shande, but Saba in that instance.
Yeah, you had the 2-on-1 in the 40th minute where he tried to chip it.
Yeah, it's like playing Saba, man. But at the same time, I get it because he is a striker, and it was a thing when he played that ball across to Shande in the bends in game 2. That's the unselfishness that you don't always see from your striker, and that's fine either way. I think I think at that point I was like, just play it across. Just play it across. It's fine. But you actually created chances, but then Shande, you needed him to have another game like you did at the Bens, and it was kind of up and down.
Yep.
And turnovers like that one leading to the break are ones where at that point, because you got turned over early in the game and then gave up a golazo, you were really behind the 8 ball, which sucked.
Yes.
But then you start pressing, and stuff like that's going to happen where like you're going to feel like, hey man, we've played, we made a mistake for goal 1, and then goal 2 just came from like Zeus himself.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we're down 2-0, and now we got to start pressing, and then you start pressing, and then you give up the 3rd goal, and that's no fun.
No.
And yeah, it felt like at that point, like, okay, we'll drop the curtain. You get the goal back from Yorgos. Dude, that's a hell of a ball from Almada over the top.
Yes.
And then Jesus, that's such an amazing ball from Almada to Brooks, and then Brooks, who I think Brooks was man of the match, personally.
Yeah.
Let's go ball over to Yorgos. Yorgos gets it right, puts him back in the net, and you're like, okay, we got a little life. And I was talking to Nick Alifi about it, that like, if you can get one more before halftime and really ratchet up the pressure, and then you have the 2-on-1 with Yorgos where he takes the chip, and that's the one to me that felt like such a gut punch. Was he's either got to get that on frame, or he's either got to get that on frame or get it over to Saba.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you could have gone into the break 3-2 with a goal right before half, I think it would have made the pressure that much more intense on Columbus. Instead, you don't. You get the transition goal the other way from Columbus to make it 4-1. You get one back immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Because this game was pretty damn drunk. Like, it's a game that if you have no emotional investment, it was a damn joy to watch.
Yeah,
because it was going to be back and forth, and then Atlanta still creates opportunities after that. You hit the post in 91st minute.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Gigi goes over the bar in the second half. Like, you still created opportunities, but the hole was too deep.
Yeah. You mentioned being down 3-0, and here's the goal 2 minutes later, basically.
Oh, God.
Let me check and it's a short call.
Okay.
So here's the goal that happened 2 minutes later to make it 3-1, once again, courtesy of our friends at 92.9 The Game and the Odyssey app.
Here's Almada, pitch to Lennon, center to Yakimakis, shot, score! Boom, Yakimakis! They're not quite dead yet. 3-1 in the 35th minute. Here's Almada.
All right, so
and that's how I felt about it. Like, you weren't quite dead yet, and if you could have gotten that second one before half, maybe you make this interesting. You make it difficult on Columbus.
Yeah,
and you weren't able to do it.
Well, and you mentioned the opportunity.
The hole was too deep.
Yeah, you mentioned the opportunity on the 2v1. Then remember the recycled corner that happened just at the end of the half where Thiago deflects it, Miles shoots it just wide, it gets recycled, then it comes back in, and you just miss Abram at the back post.
Yeah, but that's the thing is you've dug such a hole at that point that while it sucks because you've dug such a hole that you've made it to where you have to be perfect, and you just weren't able to be perfect. And Columbus took advantage of their opportunities, and you did not.
Yep. Then it ends up with Rossi going down the middle to make it 4. Then once again, the quick
That's
response.
a good ball to Rossi, too. Woo! Jesus.
Yeah. Right down the middle.
Dude.
Great work.
Raw pace, man.
Yep. And then 3 minutes later, so for the second time in the match, it doesn't take very long for Atlanta United to respond. This made it 4-2, once again, courtesy of our friends at 92.9 The Game on the Odyssey app.
Round of the square ball to the right side to Robinson. Robinson pokes it ahead now to Jay Fortune. Fortune up to the right halfway line, dribbles into the Columbus half, and will thread it through now. A good ball to Lennon. Lennon with a low cross shot. Score! Jay Fortune! Atlanta United gets it right back again. Shande Silva, not Jay Fortune. Shande Silva with the goal, and it's 4-2.
But to Mike's point, Jay Fortune.
Jay played his ass off.
Yeah, he did.
Look, man, you asked Jay to come in this you asked him to play in all 3 of these games, and it's something Felipe and I talked about during the game in Atlanta that, like, look, man, there's chunks of Jay's game that are still pretty damn raw, which Jay's 20.
Yeah.
But every time he gets on that field with the first team, it feels better and better. He fits that what you want for that 6'8" kind of thing.
Yeah.
However you really want to play him out there with Muyamba. He's a different kind of dude than
what, Hosetsu?
Than Hosetsu is.
Yeah.
But that's okay. He played his ass off. Like Jay wasn't the problem last night.
No.
It's a different kind of matchup with him and Tristan versus Tristan and Hosetsu, but yeah, man, I was really impressed with what he gave you, and it was tough. I think it's tough to ask him, like, hey, man, congratulations, like, we need you. That was a great game you played. Also, we need you right now to be that guy in a knockout game, in a winner takes all game, and he gave you, I think, what you could ask of him, and good on him for it. And look, I mean, we'll get into it in the offseason about you got options that you got to figure out with this team, because you got to figure out who's going to be a part of this project going forward and who's not.
Yeah,
and you got a lot of guys to figure out in that respect. Hosetsu's going to be one of them. If you decide not to go with Mateus Hosetsu in the future, I think Jay Fortune looking like this makes that a much easier decision, you know? So,
yeah. And last night, going through the numbers, courtesy of our friends at SofaScore, and obviously Jay had the yellow on the professional foul, which was...
You had to.
Yeah, you had to. And that's
a ball turnover. You're not... God love Jay. You ain't going to outrun Rossi.
No.
Rossi is going to be faster, and he's got to break that up to try and keep it at that point, I think, at 4-2.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I mean, also, speaking of, like, you have to take your chances, go even early in the game. I think it was when it was 2-0. Yorgos gets denied on the doorstep.
Yeah.
Which is one where you're like, I need you not to get denied right there, man. But it's also a really good save.
Yeah.
It's one where he's cutting in front of the center back. He's just trying to redirect it. Can't really, like, take a second touch and aim it. You're just trying to direct it on frame. And when he gets it on frame, he just puts it right. The keeper, it makes himself big right in front of him.
Yeah, 31st minute, and it was 2. Yeah, it was 2 at that point, and then 2 minutes later.
Yeah, 2 minutes later is the goal because they scored in the 33rd. But yeah, man, a lot of it centered down to like issues that this team's had all year that like they weren't surprising issues. They gave up goals when and they gave up a lot of goals, and they gave up goals when they didn't need to. It's something that you got to look at with this team going into next year, and it's also going to be something that you're going to live with Gonzalo Pineda running it, because Pineda's such an aggressive and risk-taking manager. He's going to go for things. He's going to get bodies forward, and you got to have defenders who are going to step up and at sometimes make plays that, they're going to be on an island. Like, I think he's at times more aggressive than even Tata was about getting guys forward and getting bodies out there.
And I know that drives folks crazy because they'll look at what happens on defense coming back the other way.
But I mean, I think it's a trade-off that you make, though.
No doubt.
Like, because go back and look at what Frank de Boer did. Like, Frank was that methodical buildup with bodies, but then like if it turned over, everybody retreated into a shell immediately. Because like you just didn't have the bodies, so you would treat it in that shell. Do you do that, or do you? Do you do that, or do you have someone who can, or do you try and defend on the front foot? And under Gonzalo Pineda, you're going to defend on the front foot. You're going to hit that counter pressure as hard as you can when the ball turns over, and you're going to pour bodies forward. You're going to try and score goals, and it's the same thing I talked with him about after games before, and I think Spurs fans are getting a lesson in this right now. Of like, hey, we're just gonna what's the score? I don't care. Go for everything. Go burn their house down. And because the idea is one idea is like, hey, you know what the easiest way to hold a 2-1 lead is? Make it a 4-1 lead.
Right.
It's just how it goes sometimes.
Yep. The numbers on Jay last night, courtesy of our friends at SofaScore. He punched a 6.9 with their stats, and I don't know what their math is, but he punched a 6.9, 57 touches, 42 of 44 passing, so 95% efficiency in his passing, 3 key passes, 2 long balls, 4 of 7 on duels, 4 for 6 on the ground, was fouled 3 times, had a clearance, 3 picks, and a tackle. So a full night for Jay Fortune last night. And the numbers...
He had to be busy.
Yeah.
You knew he was going to be busy. Columbus has a damn good midfield. You knew he was going to be very, very busy, and he did everything I think you could have asked of him. Good job, Jay.
Yeah, numbers on the board. Gigi had a 7.5. Shande had a 6.3. Thiago a 7.1. Saba a 6.7. Muyamba a 6.4 with the yellow. Jay had a 6.9 with a yellow. Caleb had a 6.3, Abraham a 5.9. You had Miles with a 6.1. Brooks Lennon punched a 7.5 last night, understandably so. Playing the full 90.
Yeah, he had 2 assists.
Had 2 assists.
He got targeted on the defensive side, and that's somewhere he's been working to improve in the, going through the 2023 season. And he'll tell you he was the first one to talk about it this year that he felt like defense was an area he needed to improve. They targeted him. I thought he made strides during the season. Columbus is just good at what they do, and they got after him.
Yep. Full 90 minutes. You had the 2 assistances, 3 clearances, 1 block, 3 picks, 2 tackles, 1 dribble pass, won 2 of his 4 ground duels, lost the 1 in the air. So 2 of 5 on his duels, and 73 touches, 47 of 54 from the wing for Brooks Lennon last night. 2 key passes, 1 cross, 2 long balls, 2 chances created, 1 shot blocked. So it was a full night for Brooks Lennon, punching a 7.5 last night, and Brad punched a 6.2. Average score was a 6.63, according to our friends at SofaScore, compared to 7.17 for Columbus.
Yeah, Brad's was a weird night, simply because you'd love for him to do better on the first one, even though it's kind of pulling across the body. The second one, I don't put on him at all. Like I think if you're mad at Brad about the second goal, you're looking for a reason to be mad at Brad.
Yeah.
Because that's just a damn golazo.
Well, and Amundsen, and you look at it, and our friends at Apple TV had a great shot from behind the net where Amundsen's ball, and this is from 35, so I mean, this is some serious weight attached to it. And I think Jason made the point on the full-time report that if it's in a straight line, if it is taking just one movement, it's not going 3 dimensions, has no spin, has no curve, I think that Brad's got a shot at it. But the fact that Amundsen had the ball launched and it had some curve on it going away from Brad and was just absolutely picture perfect made it that much more difficult to try to handle.
Yeah, I mean, it was tough to handle because he kicked it like a medicine ball, like it had the up and down motion. That being said, like I said, I mean, going into the offseason now, we don't know who's going to be here next year, who's not going to be here.
Right.
I know there's been a lot of talk about Miles getting those offers from Europe, and look, more power to him, man. Miles is at that age now. If he doesn't go now, I don't know if he's going to. If he doesn't go now, I don't know if he's going to be able to go to Europe.
Right.
And play with someone that's not like at a lower level. If he wants those chances on European nights, now's the time for Miles to go. And I will happily shake his hand, help him pack his bags, not out of dislike, but out of, I will help him pack his bags as a thank you for everything.
Mm-hmm.
As the first draft pick from this club. But yeah, man, go chase your dreams.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. It's okay to go chase your dreams. But you've got, him. I know people have wanted to have this conversation about Brad for a while, and we'll dive into it in the offseason because we talked about like, hey, let's have that in the offseason when we don't have games. Well, now we don't have games. Now we can have that conversation. I know there's been a lot of discussion about, Ethan Horvath being free. There was the Josh Cohen conversations in the during the season with all of like that weird thing where he was like linked to Atlanta and then kind of wasn't, and then Atlanta made an offer that the league said no, that was a fair offer,
bona fide offer. There you go.
Yeah, and then Cohen said he won't negotiate with them anymore because he didn't think it was, and it was weird. Yeah. But yeah, man, like because I know Brad's comments last night. If we want to play reading into things, Brad's comments last night make me wonder if he might kind of want to take a step back.
So here's from the 280 character app last night, and I'm pulling from Doug Robertson of the AJC and what Doug posted. Ask Kazan if he plans to play next season. He's under contract, says now isn't the time to think about it, needs to sit down and talk. Brad says, I always say my wife and kids, they always come first, and they're always behind me in terms of their support. And they're always there, and I'm eternally grateful for all the support they give me. So it's always a conversation with them. But, yeah, there'll be conversations with the club and conversations with my family. So that's about par for the course.
Yeah, and that's the thing is I want yeah, Tom, we because we had talked about this back in the day. Yeah, man, it's now the off season. So like now I think, yeah, this is that time where you have those conversations about, is Brad the one going forward? Because yeah, his save percentage dropped this year. The fact that Brad came back as quickly as he did from that Achilles and like had a functioning season.
Yeah.
With some games like the LA game, he made a couple saves last night that I thought he didn't have really any business making.
Second half, he was out of his points.
But he also let in some goals that you don't want to let in.
No.
You got to have that conversation about, do we want him to be, is he the guy next year? And I think if you can improve the area, you do. Mm-hmm. Now, the question for Brad there is, how do you build that conversation with him about, hey, man, thank you for everything. We need to figure out we need to improve as a team, and that might be improving your position. How comfortable are you with being, a guy who can mentor a younger player? Because that might be where you're at here.
Yeah.
I need you to get this young. I need to be a mentor now.
Yeah. And, obviously, once again, now, Brad, the list, and once again, I'm referencing the list that Doug has, and I know that we talked about the list in and of itself when it comes to the decisions that have to be made in the offseason one way or the other. Miles, and this is just decisions that have to be made in a combination of desire from outside plus contracts that are expiring. Miles, Thiago, Mateus Osetiu, Quentin Westberg, Jackson Conway, Amar Sadic, Miguel Ibarra, Santi Sosa, Derek Etienne Jr., Miguel Berry, Clement Diop, Ozzy Alonso, Juanjo Purata, Hernandez, and then wondering whether or not you pick up the contract of Xande Silva. And I'm guessing that the answer there is yeah. And then I think also you've got to and then I think TRA might also be a discussion too. But those are the names right now. There's a lot of decisions that have to be made by Garth Lagerwey and this front office and Gonzalo Pineda and the coaching staff is to figure out what they want to do going forward.
One of the areas of this team that I'm most interested to seeing personally is how they work the winger room out.
Yeah.
Because is Xande back? Do you go through after his loan and bring him here full time? I would love to.
Yeah.
I know Xande had turnovers in this playoff that really hurt you a couple times. I know some things sucked.
Yeah.
But Xande also gave you some incredibly dynamic play on the wing. And I'd love to see him be part of the project. Saba is going to be part of this. And Saba, you've shown you what he can be. And I'd love to see him in a full season.
Right.
I think Tyler Wolf is still a part of this as a super sub kind of guy. And what he gave you this year, I think can't be, I don't know. It's what he gave you this year was so damn impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Coming off the bench, especially after getting denied a spot with the U20s, he came out and he just started scoring goals and he started contributing and he started looking like the guy that I think they thought he was, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Machop Chol's an interesting one. If you can bring him back on a low number, I would love to do it because Chol's for the culture of the locker room, because Machop Chol was one of the most beloved players in that locker room. The guy's just struggling to stay healthy. I would be very interested to keep Machop Chol here.
Yeah.
If the number is right, knowing that he might not be able to give you when he started to take those strides this year too, and was kind of a joker wild card kind of thing. But you also have to figure out the Derek Etienne situation. And I think Etienne's on a multi-year deal. You're not going to buy him out. I don't think you'll find a mutual parting, but I don't know how much time he would get on the field. You also have Edwin Mosquera, who, man, let's be honest here. Of all those U22s at the beginning of the season, no one thought Edwin Mosquera would be the one to stick. Edwin Mosquera may be the one to stick.
Mm-hmm.
Edwin Mosquera was damn good this season when he came back from Defensa Justicia.
Yeah.
And I would love to see what he's got, for another year here, because I really thought he started to find something. But you also have Luke Brennan coming up.
Correct. On
a homegrown deal. That winger room is really, really crowded, man.
Mm-hmm. And that's going to be.
And Michael, I don't know how much of the field Etienne sees, but if he's under contract and if you don't necessarily want to just straight up burn the buyout, do you see if you can find a mutual, or do you see if he can be, honestly, do you want to ask him if he can be a guy who becomes kind of a mentor? I don't know how he feels about this stage of his career. If you tell him, hey man, we're going to be sending you back and forth from Kennesaw and Atlanta.
Yeah. If
you want minutes, that's going to be where they live.
He's through 25, according to Transfermarkt.
Yeah. If you don't want to straight up buy him out, and if he's okay with the role, do you keep him and play him with the twos a bunch? And he'll find some minutes with the first team just because of international duty, injuries, attrition, opportunity, that kind of thing. But if he wants to be a guy who can help out some of the younger players, do you see if he wants to take on that role?
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned Luke Brennan, you've got Noah Cobb as a part of the discussion as well at the back. And that's going to be fun to see how he continues to develop. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of questions. Here's your timetable, by the way, for off-season calendar. 22nd of November, day before Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving. Club deadline to submit bona fide offers is the 22nd of November. MLS clubs must submit to the MLS office in writing all bona fide offers. Clubs in the conference semis are required to submit all bona fide offers on the day after their final match of the postseason. December 1 is when MLS clubs must submit to the MLS League office which players have their options exercised and which players will not. Losing conference semifinal clubs must submit exercise option decisions to the MLS League office on the day after their final match of the postseason. Clubs competing in MLS Cup presented by Audi. I love how the wording from MLS.
Hey man, that's all contractual, baby. It's all contractual.
Includes the sponsoring element. Must submit exercise option decisions to the MLS League office December 10. 6 through 9 of December is the College Showcase out in Phoenix. Closed door event, according to Major League Soccer. So
broadcast it, you cowards.
Exactly. We'll broadcast it. December 11 on Monday, the trade window opens. So the trade window extravaganza starts at 9 a.m. on Monday the 11th. I, however, will be at Mercedes-Benz Stadium on Monday the 11th, Tuesday the 12th, and Wednesday the 13th. So Jarrett and Nick might have to take over for transfer.
Man, I'm just, you know what, dude? I'm just sad that it won't be Osborne in there because they ran into a Mill Creek machine Friday night.
That is true. They did. So trade window opens December the 11th following the roster freeze. December 12, end-of-year waivers is at 5 o'clock Eastern time, conducted in reverse order of the 2023 season finish. December 13th is when free agency opens, 1 o'clock on Wednesday afternoon. The 14th is when I'll be back in earnest because the reentry process starts at 1 o'clock on stage 1. December 19 is your super draft. December 21 is reentry process stage 2, conducted in the same order. So that's where we are. So, but also don't be surprised if teams want to make decisions before the 22nd. We've seen that already. We've seen teams that have not made the playoffs announce that dudes are back or dudes are not back, that kind of thing. So 22nd is the bona fide offer deadline for players and that kind of a thing. But as seasons end, we've seen decisions being made. So we'll see what happens with Dallas, with RSL, and with Atlanta if anything happens between now and 9 days from now. Yeah. So that's that gauntlet that you've got that you have to play with here.
Yeah, it's the off season stays busy, man.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no,
you broadcast the College Showcase, you cowards.
Exactly.
You used to do it back in the day. It was always great. Good. We would just get these incredibly tiny looks of that guy looks fun. That guy looks fun.
Mm-hmm.
That guy does not look fun. Which is not really fair to the kids, but yeah, give us something to watch, man.
Mm-hmm. Because I mean, look, you're leading up to what a better way to lead up to MLS Cup presented by Audi than have the 4-ringed automobile sit there and have your College Showcase leading into MLS Cup. It gives you something to continue the momentum of your programming grid.
Yeah.
I'm just saying,
Just saying.
The list of the USMNT U23s for the friendlies against Iraq and Morocco as they get ready for the 24 games is out. Christopher Brady, John Pulskamp in net. George Campbell on the men's Olympic soccer team on the November training camp list.
As he should be. George Campbell was good. There just wasn't time. Wasn't really space for George Campbell here because of what you had playing and what you had in the depth, and I'm happy for George that he's getting the opportunity to go be that guy. Hopefully he gets a stable coach in Montreal now. That would be peachy.
Yes, Campbell, Max Dietz, Nathan Harriel, Brian Reynolds, John Tolkien, Jonathan Tompkinson, who's currently at Bradford City, the Norwich City loanee. Midfield, Josh Atencio, Cole Bassett, Jean-Luc Abusio, Benja Kremoski.
Jean-Luc Abusio, man, what a blast from the past.
Yeah.
Next, you're going to tell me about Jean-Belu Tabla.
Yeah, don't. Hey, and who is the other? Zachary Broguiar, Jack McGlynn, Tanner Tessman, your midfield, your forwards, Agustin Anello, Ismail Bayraktarovich, Taylor Booth, Cade Cowell, Johan Gomez, and Bernard Kamungo. So that is that's your November training camp invitees for the friendlies against Iraq and Morocco. That is coming out this morning, and I think that. Obviously, like I said, we'll dissect everything with Atlanta United as we go. But we ain't going nowhere. I mean, it's like 8 weeks until
when do we ever?
I know 8 weeks until training camp kicks back in.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like 10 weeks to friendlies and then 12 weeks to things. And I mean,
games come sooner than later, y'all.
Yeah. And I mean, we've got, we have roster decisions, all these kinds of things. We ain't going nowhere because games are still being played. I know.
And if there is a God, they'll play games over like outside the U.S. and we can just shove Mike and Jason on an airplane and send them somewhere, and then we'll hear about it.
Exactly. So when we
don't ask them, by the way, we literally just shove them on the plane.
And Jason would be like, "Okay, cool, my passport works, I'm ready to go," and Mike would be like, "I'm making something on the big green egg here."
Yeah. Mike's grilling something that he's cooking something on the grill, like something extravagant that I've never seen with sea salt he got from a monk in the Himalayas. With spices that haven't been seen in 250 years.
Exactly. I mean, this is a team where they only lost 2 of their last 10 after Leagues Cup with this lineup and with these acquisitions that were brought in. They lost 2 of their last 10, won 4, drew 4 to get into the position that they were in. And I know that we sit here and we look at Atlanta as the 6th. Columbus is a damn good team, and the East is a damn good conference.
Yeah, the East is fun.
I mean, it is absolutely.
I'm gonna hate watch the rest of it.
Oh, absolutely. So, but I mean, if you look at, say, all right, so Columbus was your 3 at 57 points. Philly and New England, both at 55, identical records. Atlanta had 51 points, and Nashville at 49. Then you get your drop off. So, if you were to transpose, Atlanta would have finished. Let's see, how many wins did Houston have? 14. Atlanta had 13. So, by virtue of the tiebreaker of wins, Atlanta would have finished 5th in the West, and they would have been in the chaos involving Houston and RSL. So,
hell in a shell.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, you've got Columbus, who for me is a very, very dangerous team. I mean, they're fun to watch. They're dangerous, and I think that Orlando's in for a bit of an interesting go round when you come into the next.
Maybe, but last time these teams played, it was drunk as hell.
Yes.
And last time these teams played, Columbus took the lead and then shipped a couple of late goals and lost to Orlando.
Yeah. And that's
both of them are very capable of terrorizing each other.
Yeah, and that's the thing involving Columbus, is that Columbus gave up more than half of their goals this season in the second half, but more specifically in the first 15 minutes of the second half and the last 15 minutes of matches. And in a one-off on the road, that's going to be the tough part for Columbus as they try to navigate the purple team and this going against type Oscar Pereja on the 25th. They figured out their dates for the final 8. And the Saturday doubleheader is going to be the Eastern teams. The Sunday doubleheader is going to be the Western teams. So Orlando and the purple team, 5:30 start. Interesting. 5:30 start for the doubleheader. Orlando hosting Columbus, 5:30 the Saturday after Thanksgiving. So for those of us who will be at the Iron Bowl, we will be watching from a digital device. And 8 o'clock Eastern, it is Cincinnati hosting Philadelphia in a game that will probably set the world of soccer back at least 2 decades. Oh, that one's going to be a rough one to watch. That's going to be a rough one to watch.
Wait, that game or the Iron Bowl?
No, the bowl, both. Cincinnati and Philly, but Cincinnati and Philly specifically. But the Iron Bowl will be a 3:30 start. So by the time we will have started to leave the parking area, will be when Cincinnati and Philadelphia come on the air.
Yeah, I'm. Hey, you know what? At least you didn't pay Jimbo $78 million.
You ain't kidding, brother. Sunday's doubleheader is on the 26th. Houston hosting Kansas City, 4 versus 8. And that's across the board. That's on Season Pass, and that's on the FOX family of sports. So it's FS1, Fox Deportes, and then 9:30 back on Season Pass. It is Seattle hosting LAFC. So we'll have the discussions with with Nico coming up on Thursday with what he thinks about what's going on here with the final 8. But yeah, we've got plenty of discussions, and I know we got plenty of comments from the folks this morning. So what else is on your mind, Jarrett?
And for what it's worth, my favorite My favorite theory I've seen so far, I think it was Bomani Jones who said the best situation here would be if Texas A&M hired Jim Harbaugh, because Jim Harbaugh and Aggie Nation are both so uniquely deranged and weird in their own special ways.
Yes.
That the only way that would end is in bloodshed. Someone would have to die, be it Jim or part of Aggie Nation, because they're all very weird. I don't know if we have Texas A&M people in here ever. But yeah, like Aggie Nation's the closest thing you get to a cult.
Closest thing you get to. I think they I think
but Jim Harbaugh sitting there eating like a well done steak with a glass of milk, arguing about football, and it ending in bloodshed is how that would end.
Yeah,
it would be amazing.
It would. Yes, Tom. Welcome to the CFDH portion of the program. It's college football down here. Exactly. You're absolutely.
Hey, man, I got to sit there and I got to spend my Saturdays watching a Madhouse defense and seeing how much Jaden Daniels can rescue it. And then I got to watch Arthur Smith do whatever the hell that is on Sundays. I got to get my therapy session too.
Yes. And by the way, Mississippi State has fired Zach Arnett after 4-6.
It wasn't a good. Look, man. You had a team that was built to run the Mike Leach system. God rest the dread pirate Leach's soul.
Yes.
You put a dude in charge based off of a super emotional bowl game, and then it didn't work because it doesn't really fit.
Yeah.
Like, no kidding, it didn't work, man.
Yeah, no joke. No joke, Sherlock.
You either gotta either bring someone in to either bring someone in to actually run the
spread,
run that offense, full air raid.
Yeah.
But good luck finding someone who runs it like he does, because he was like okay, we'll take this to soccer terms. It's like finding the one coach who is insane enough to play Bielsa's system exactly like Bielsa.
Yeah. Well, then you know what you would do.
But because Leach was as close as you were going to get to Hal Mummy, and frankly, he might have been more insane.
And that's who you get. That's who you should have gotten. You should have.
Mummy was coaching in the XFL, I think.
Yeah, he was. He would think he was a coordinator, but I mean, he ain't doing nothing. You bring Mummy in, you get him to talk about Jimmy Buffett songs. And
he's too old to go to Starkville.
But that. Well, I know, but you sit there and you have young assistants who are just as crazy as he is. You have Mummy be your lead coach, CEO, and then that's what you should have done at Mississippi State. You bring in Mummy as your transitional coach.
Oh, Tom, buddy, you hit me up whenever you want to complain about Franklin, and I'm here to listen to your troubles because I completely agree.
Oh man,
I am not a James Franklin fan, and I don't think he's great. My sympathies go out to you as a Penn State fan having to watch James Franklin and like 3 offensive coordinators in a row where it just didn't work, and it hasn't been good since Trace McSorley was just, Trace McSorley was just making things work, just made it happen himself.
Sorley reference this morning.
Man, Trace McSorley was so much fun though. Like I've talked about this game with Mike before. The Penn State USC Rose Bowl was magical because it was just, there was no defense. It was just running nines.
Oh yeah.
Over and over and over. And people just throwing bombs, man.
You sit there, you go in the huddle, and you're the quarterback, and you sit there and you point at your receiver and go, vert, vert, vert on 2.
Yeah. You're gonna bend your vert to the middle of the field. But man, yeah, that's because also he is the coach who I am fully expecting to get an extension out of this.
Oh, absolutely.
Texas A&M opening. He's gonna go to
whoever
to the powers that be at Penn State and be like, hey, you guys should give me a contract extension.
Hey,
I
just got contacted from the folks in College Station, and I'd love for one of the regents to sit there and go, okay, bye.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah,
Jimbo. Put Jimbo Fisher in charge of, like, I don't know, Charlotte.
Oh my.
FC.
Oh well. Yeah, Z-Man and Jimbo.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's the thing, is like like I said yesterday, a sane human being would get $78 million in in buyout money and would never. If you gave me $78 million because I was bad at my job and told me I'm not working for you anymore, here's $78 million. The degree to which you would never see me again cannot be overstated. Like, I would not exist anymore.
The man would be, he'd be like Kaiser Soze. He's gone.
Jimbo is insane, though, and college football coaches are insane. Jimbo will be back.
Jimbo will do a year.
I don't know where.
Jimbo will do a year at the 4-letter. He'll hang out with his buddy Dan Mullen, or if Mullen gets a gig, Jimbo goes into
that's a conversation I don't want to be a part of, is him and Dan Mullen. That sounds like such a terrible time.
Oh, absolutely, because they're going to paint smiles on their faces and try to look like they're enjoying themselves when they are in fact just want to be coaching.
The most miserable human beings.
Yeah, but they're rich, miserable human beings because of their buyouts.
You are correct.
All right, so what everybody thought in the rundown here. Thanks to everybody in the Twitch pitch. Keep your comments coming. Abby was there, and she says last night sucked worse in person. And
I believe it.
And Michael says last night was a summary of the season.
Yeah, you scored goals and you gave up goals when you could not give them up, and you gave them up in really annoying ways. The second one notwithstanding, I still give a pass on the second goal because it was such a...
Oh, it's a worldie.
Yeah, it's a world-class hit. The rest of them, yeah. Like I said, this is going to be a conversation you got to have going into 24 about, if Miles Robinson is going to Europe, which sounds like sounds like where it's going to be.
Perhaps, possibly, probably, maybe.
You got to figure out who you want to put there to partner with. I guess I assume it's going to be Luis Abram, because I was very impressed with Luis Abram as the season went on, and he started looking more and more like the guy who
the Cruz Azul guy.
Yeah, the guy who was getting sold to Europe because they were convinced he was too good for everyone here.
Yeah.
And that part's fine. You've got him. I don't think Parata's back. I'd assume he goes back to Mexico unless he wants to stay and be that third guy.
Yeah.
Noah Cobb's got to be part of the project going forward. You got to see what you got in Noah Cobb. But yeah, I assume you're gonna go out and throw some TAM down.
Yeah.
To get an incredibly athletic center back.
Yeah. We don't know right now.
Yeah.
We've heard all the scuttlebutt about a fourth DP and all these kinds of things. We don't know anything about that advancing into Major League Soccer yet. And that could be something you would consider if you were to add that fourth DP. But once again, no word on that as of yet.
Yeah. And so you got to figure out how you're going to fix that spot. I personally, I don't know how y'all feel. I want to see what the defensive numbers look like with a whole season Tristan Muyamba and either Josetu or Jay Fortune, or if they go get another. But I know I know a couple. I think it was Tom and Michael were talking about. You would bring back Josetu on a lower number. I would too, but depending on what that number is, or depending on what you feel like you need, and depending on what the cap does, you go find yourself someone bigger, and you go find another Muyamba to complement the current Muyamba you have, and try and make that position even better.
Yeah. Well, because now this was my interpretation, and this is how I've been explaining it to folks about the midfield. And it's analogy radio, so pardon me if I'm off the rails here. I likened the midfield of Atlanta United to a 3-guard offense in college basketball, where you have each guard doing different things. You have your shooting guard, your point guard, and your defensive guard, who's going to be there and the first guy to help out in transitions. And so in that vein, I had Thiago as your shooting guard, Josetu as your point guard, and Muyamba as that third guard doing whatever needed to be done in any particular possession. Am I off in that assessment?
I don't think so. This will be interesting to see how they piece it together, honestly. At least for me, it will be.
Yeah. No, and I think that because
the reason I say that is I don't know if Almada gets sold in January, because I know that's the assumption.
Yeah.
Look, man, I thought Almada was going to get sold I thought Almada was going to get sold
6 months ago.
Yeah, I thought he was going to get sold in the summer,
Mhm.
and he wasn't.
Yeah.
If there is not a club that is actively looking in January for a like a bona fide 10 playmaker kind of guy like Newcastle was for Miggy,
Mhm.
do you wait till the summer?
Yeah.
If it's not there, do you keep? If he stays to the summer, I'm not going to fall out of my chair in surprise.
Mhm.
And then yeah, the summer is such a more opportune time to make those kind of deals. So I could see him going in the summer. What about Ibarra? See, Abby, I think I part of me thinks, and I don't know, like I don't have any inside baseball on this. Part of me thinks that what they're going to end up doing though is knocking down those DP slots because you're not going to have those young DP slots.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to always have the the DP breakdown that you've had where it was you could have all of those young DP slots.
Mhm.
Or the U22 slots. Sorry. I don't think you're going to keep all the U22 slots throughout all of 24. I think you rehome Ibarra and you rehome Sosa.
Yeah.
I'd love to see Santi go back to Argentina. Somewhere or wherever he is comfortable.
Yeah.
Let him rebuild himself. Let him have a healthy year in a fit that works for him, because I don't think that's here, which sucks because, even going back to 21, we were just over the moon excited about, Santi.
And he sent Blaise Matuidi into retirement.
He did send Blaise Matuidi into retirement. And as much as I love Santi, I think he needs a fresh start. I don't think it's here. And it's okay. You're comfortable with what you have right now. If it's Muyamba and Hosetu or someone better or Jay,
Mhm.
I think you you sit down with Santi and you tell him, hey man, I think you ask him, where are you comfortable?
Yeah.
Where do you want to be? Here's a list of places that are of interest in you. Are any of these places that you're interested in being? How can we make this work for you? And Ibarra, kind of a similar thing. I think I kind of feel like the ship sailed on Ibarra.
Yeah.
With as frustrated he was with comments like when he went to Toronto.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I don't want to say that those comments like closed the door on him ever playing here again. But I don't know, man. Maybe you give him a fresh start too. Because he's bounced around the second half of the year because of everything. But he also was really damn good when he was here in Atlanta this year and really made jumps. And I'm happy for him. But I think you're looking at, if I got to keep somebody on that U22, I Mosqueda might graduate from it soon. I'm not 100% sure.
Efforting.
But I think you keep those U22 spots minimized so that you have the flexibility. Because let's say you sell Amada, that way you don't have to go get a young DP. You can just go get a DP. That's my thinking on it.
Mosqueda is currently 22 and is under contract through the end of.
I think he's okay, but I think he gets to keep that designation even a little bit after.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like what are you when your contract starts?
Yeah,
that's what gets you the U22.
But I wouldn't be surprised if those are two guys, the other two are guys that you try and rehome and try and find them fits that work for them.
Mm-hmm.
Now that you have like time to do that.
Yeah.
You're not rushing to do it. You find them fits that work for them. Unless, you think you can make it work. I don't know. We'll see.
Santi has one more year under his deal. And like I said, Hosetu is at the end of this calendar year. Santi's at the end of the next calendar year. Our friends at Transfermarkt have Matheus Hosetu at a market value of €1.5 million. So that's that market value.
My thing with Santi is because he hasn't been healthy, I would be very anxious to make sure that if we move him, also he played his ass off here.
Yeah.
Is if you move him, I want to make sure he gets to go somewhere where he is very comfortable. Like I would want to have that conversation with him of, hey man, you're not a part of this project going forward. Where are you comfortable? Where do you want to be? And we will try everything we can to make that happen.
Yeah, and this is something that we've seen with Atlanta United consistently, is that they want to do their players solids.
Yeah. The Ibarra thing was so weird because it happened so quickly.
Yeah.
And it was really it was unexpected in the way that they've traditionally been handling stuff.
I mean, it turned into a numbers game when Mosqueda's loan got blown up.
And that one was weird just because I think that one got weird because when Defensa was ready to cancel the loan, you don't want to tell Defensa, hey man, you're just gonna have to stick there, and they're just gonna have to you got to keep him on your books, and you're just gonna have to languish away there.
Yep.
In one of those situations, you're bringing him back, if for no other reason, you're maintaining that relationship with Defensa Justicia.
Correct.
You don't want to set a bad relationship. You don't want to poison that well of where they start, talking about loan deals in the future. And like, well, Atlanta did us dirty by making us hang on to this guy that we didn't want, and they stuck him here and just kind of left him to rot.
Right. And then that word spreads throughout South America that Atlanta United is not a team that you want to deal with, and then you close yourself off in an entirely different market.
Yeah. Which I don't know, man. Because Atlanta seems to have shifted their business to second division France. Hey, man, that ish worked pretty damn well.
Yeah.
Hilariously well.
Hey, it is all about and it is all about finding the undervalued marketplace, finding players and finding clubs that have, and frankly, they have financial issues. And you're looking for those underappreciated assets. You're looking for those franchises that are trying to deal with things financially. They need to dispose of assets to try to make things work financially in whatever league they're in. And so, being smart businessmen, you're always looking for those markets for underappreciated assets and distressed assets. And so, Atlanta United has shifted to Europe and Ligue 2, and you found some folks. So there you go. So I mean, that's you're always looking for underappreciated assets and distressed assets when you're trying to do business.
And we'll see what's available around the league too.
We'll
see if teams try and take pieces apart and see if see if there's anything that you want to find elsewhere. But yeah, man, well, that's all going to be part of this insane off season, and man, we don't really know what everything's going to look like yet. We don't know what rule changes are going to come. God only knows. And even if they change, we won't know about it till it happens, because MLS likes to sit there and, hey, the paper's due at 11:59 p.m. and 11:58:35 they have started the upload process.
Yeah, they really do. They don't give you a whole lot of advance warning about things, but according to Michael, Doug has intimated he has the full story on the 4 U21s and DPs, but that info's off the record. So
we'll wait till it gets on the record then.
Yeah, and it'll be at the last minute, and then we'll have to kind of keep an eye on what's going on the record.
I just want to know, how much of that kind of stuff. I want to know how much of that kind of stuff is hey, we just figured this out, but how much of it is the teams figuring it out too? Because does the league send out an email? All right, free agency's open. By the way, you can spend on a fourth DP now.
Yeah,
They get more warning than that.
I'm before I read a promo and we get into hour number 2, I'm gonna go to the irony alert and the irony award of the day.
Okay.
MLS has named their Defender of the Year. Literally, this happened top of the hour. They're going to roll out these awards as we go.
Is he suspended for the next 3 games?
Matt Miazga, the name MLS Defender of the Year.
Whatever.
What in the ever-loving blue hell is that?
What it is
it should have been.
We see that.
It should have been Tim Parker is what it should have been.
I've been fine with that. When a team hits darling status, and has a really fun time, I think we do this in all sports where we like overvalue their production of like, man, this team was amazing. Look at this guy. He was great. Look at this guy. He was great. Oh my God. It's like we're like in an antique shop and we don't know what to do with ourselves. And all of a sudden we're like, this guy deserves everything. This guy was amazing. How could you not give him an award too? Easy. Give it to Tim Parker. Even though Tim Parker has become a master of the dark arts, that's kind of a pain in the ass to play against.
Well-rounded folks. Contributor Nile, the 16-year-old in the Man's Body Award. So here's how.
I bet Matt didn't demand a recount on this one.
No. And he didn't go storming into the writer's office.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe he did, and that's how he got the award. All right. So here's how FC Cincinnati has phrased the stalwart that is Matt Miazga. Literally, word number 2 in the paragraph. The stalwart defender has led an improved Cincinnati backline, and that's true. And
they were very improved this year.
And defense since joining the Orange and Blue in August 2022 from Chelsea. In the 36 games he was on the field, the Miazga-led defense allowed just 35 goals, 0.97. Started 12 matches. Club held their opponents scoreless. And, well, that to me just means that Celentano had 12 clean sheets. And his 10 MLS regular season clean sheets are tied for 4th most among outfield players in the league. Playing a key role in FC Cincinnati's dramatic turnaround over the last 2 seasons, 27, 6, and 15 in all matches Miazga's appeared in, advanced to the Cup playoffs at conclusion of both seasons. Blah, 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 blah.
I mean, but okay, so this is, let's have this conversation, and I'm about to hit my, I'm about to turn back into a pumpkin in a minute, but let's have this conversation about, like, we're going to do this in football here pretty soon about the Heisman Trophy. Mm-hmm. Do we give awards like this to the person who was the best at what they did, or the leader of the best unit?
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, Miazga was good this year. I thought Tim Parker was better. I think Walker Zimmerman's better most years. That's just me.
Yeah.
So do you give it to one of those guys, or do you give it to the guy who was like the face and better defender on a really good unit?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where and then we do the same thing in football of, hey, do we give the Heisman to the best player in America, or like the best player on the best team?
Yeah.
Or, or the most explosive player on a team that's going to be in the playoff kind of thing. Like, do you give it to Bo Nix? Like, Bo Nix, hey, man, Bo Nix putting up Heisman numbers out there in Oregon.
It's amazing what happens when you have a coordinator who knows what he's doing and surrounds him with appropriate resources.
Well, didn't he have a different coordinator like every year, too?
Correct.
Oh, man. I miss Gus Malzahn.
Stability. Well,
I'm not even an Auburn fan. I miss Gus Malzahn.
Well, then go follow what's going on in the American.
I don't want to.
No, considering what they did to Oklahoma State this past weekend, more college football down here.
Yeah, well, that was funny.
Yep. You're back tomorrow?
Yes, I am. Oh. And I agree, Abby. It's best player, period. And I think that was Tim Parker this year. Even though Tim Parker is an absolute wrestling heel on the soccer field, I think it was Tim Parker this year. But that's okay. We can have debates about these sorts of things. We can get grumpy about them at times. That's okay.
Yeah, that's what we're here for. Grumpy down here. All right, we'll catch up with you tomorrow.
Sounds good.
All right, that's Jarrett. He's here for hour number 1. So your Defender of the Year voting breakdown goes as follows. Player vote, Miazga was second at 16.56% of the vote. The club vote was where, and the media vote was where he really swung it, which is confusing. Club vote, Miazga 26.83% of the vote, and the media vote was almost 1/3 of the media members, 32.95% of the vote, for a total of 25.45%. Tim Parker was second. It was a close second. It was a close second and third between Tim Parker and Yemar Gomez Andrade. Parker won the player vote, then got obliterated in the club vote, 2.44% for Tim Parker, and then 9.83%. He finished third in the club vote, third in the media vote at 9.83% of the vote, wrapping up at 10.46%. Yamar Gomez Andrade obviously finishes a distant third in the player vote, just under 4%. Finishes second in the club vote at 7.32%, and finished second in the media vote at 16.76% to finish at 9.3%. So close second and third with 1.16% difference between Tim Parker and Yamar Gomez Andrade. But Matt Miazga is your defender of the year in Major League Soccer. Okay. So there you go. Mazel tov, Matt Miazga. Good on you. All right. So we're past the hour mark. And so that means it's time to read a promo. And I will turn the music down. And we will find the rock button and read a promo. For odor-free, clean, fresh air, one place you need to go. It's a Lemonize service. QR code over my left shoulder for those of you who are watching on YouTube, on Twitch, and on the 280-character app. Lemonize deodorizes enclosed spaces like houses, apartments, and condos. They've created a customized solution that eliminizes all organic odors, including those like pets, cigarettes, and food. Realtors and property managers use the Lemonize service to eliminate bad odors to help them sell or rent their homes that much faster. It's a turnkey process. Makes it easy to work with said realtors and property managers. Lemonize kind of the environment. We like that. Offering a green way to get rid of odors without any kind of toxic residue whatsoever. Different than Febreze or other masking agents that you may have either under the sink or above you in the cupboard, because when you reach under the sink or above you in the cupboard to grab said masking agent, there's a reason it's called a masking agent, because when you spray it in the air, you're masking the odor. You're not attacking the problem all the way down to the molecule like our friends at the Lemonize service do with their proven scientific formula. Mike, pricing very, very easy, either by the cubic foot or parts per million, to come up with a price that's affordable for you, offering results in 24 hours or less. If you have any questions, frequently asked or otherwise, one place you need to go, it's the website. This is where I grab my pen, or one of the pens that I have. Website, lemonize.com. But after the .com, do us a favor. Go /Atlanta so they know what part of the world that you are addressing them from, so they can help you with your issues. Full homework assignment. ELIMINIZE.com/Atlanta, lemonize.com/Atlanta, Lemonize service. Proud sponsors of Everything SDH on a Reaction Monday, where we talk about the MLS playoffs and Atlanta United season coming to a close, losing 2-1 in the opening round best of 3. See, now I want to fade it, but it only fades at the beginning and the end of the actual cut. It doesn't fade the way that the software works. So it fades the track in and out. It doesn't fade the track in when you want and out when you're done. It's the beginning of the track and the end of the track. So you got that fading out whole thing that you got to worry about here. So no, Michael, do not be sorry about Malzahn. Yeah. Don't follow. Yeah. Don't follow Malzahn one bit. I just know that they whacked Oklahoma State on the weekend, and it wasn't even that close. Don't want to talk about a letdown game after Bedlam. UCF walked in the door, knocked on it, and blew up Oklahoma State. So there you go. All right. So continuing what you guys were talking about here in the first hour on the Twitch pitch. Like I said, keep your thoughts coming in. I think that this is probably shaping up to be the conversation of the day. And if we have time, we'll get into the NWSL Championship, the USL Championship, which was crazy in its own right. Rocco Rios Nova getting a title, as Phoenix wins in the bottom of the 5th in penalties last night. Mike Watts and Devin Kerr on the call on ESPN2, Sarah Gordon on the sidelines. And try to effort Lucas Panzica in tomorrow morning to discuss things from his perspective in the Eastern Conference. Nashville out earlier than Atlanta, and we'll see what the future might be for Nashville and see if we can grab Lucas from the Casa de Lucas before he heads into work at 104.5 The Zone in Nashville. Michael, never gave up atrocious defense. Sometimes you simply have to clear the freaking ball. After that first goal, it was all downhill. Niall is optimistic about next season. Abby was discussing the missed shots that should have gone in. Defense was and has been horrible, just awful. And we're discussing goal number 1. Niall was like, yeah, Miles just had to clear the ball. Abby, defensive mistakes killed you. Impressed with the responses, though. Niall was. Michael, in the future, look back at 22 and 23 wasted years with the best player in our history. Tom asking can we be optimistic about next year, though? If all the rumors come true, I'm afraid we're just handing the cup to Miami. Well, bringing in Luis Suarez and seeing how things are going to be for I was about to say the University of Miami, for Messi and friends. You see, I've got Florida State on the brain. We see after that college football downhill that we had down here in the first hour, I've got college football on the brain. I think you can, because you will have had we mentioned the stat in the first, and Dylan Butler actually mentioned the stat in his write-up from the piece, since he watched the match last night and covered it for MLSsoccer.com. Atlanta was they won, or they only lost 2 of 10 after Leagues Cup going into the playoffs to get to the 6. So I think that what you can do is you can take that offense. You'll have a full, instead of just throwing Saba and Shande and Tristan Muyumba into the pile and going, okay, here go. You get a full training camp with them. You get training camp with the individuals that you're bringing in to integrate that entire process. So I would say, yeah, Tom, you could be. I mean, and don't focus on Messi and friends. I know it's a shiny object. I get that. But, as we mention here and mention pretty much everywhere, there are 2 folks who are undefeated, Mother Nature and Father Time. Jordi Alba gets a year older. Sergi Busquets gets a year older. Messi is still insane. Luis Suarez gets a year older. And so, yeah, I know we look like we're handing things over to Messi and friends, but, it also depends on who else they bring in to their coffers as well. So, so we'll see. But no, I'm not handing it over to Messi and friends, although they are definitely the leader in the clubhouse with all the resources they have, everything that the Moss brothers are throwing in. But think about this for a second. This is all in. I mean, literally, the Moss brothers have taken, and David Beckham have taken all of their chips, and they have put them in the center of the table. They have literally shoved everything they have to the center of the table, leading into the new stadium that Lionel Messi, I don't believe, will be playing in. I don't know if Sergi Busquets or Jordi Alba or Luis Suarez will be playing in that new stadium. All of this is a lead up to 2026. It will be up to the Moss brothers to figure out what they want to do with Messi, with their life post Messi and friends. That's going to be the larger decision. It is easy, as we spoke about in hour number 1, with the college football down here discussion about Texas A&M. You throw money at a problem, your instinct is to, if it doesn't work out, to throw more money at a problem. What's that got in Texas A&M? Texas A&M is average, slightly above average, maybe in the SEC. What was it, during the COVID year when they got into a New Year's 6, and that was about it? What happens when this run is over? After all of the stuff has been thrown to the table, will the Moss brothers and Inter Messi FC have the financials and the desire? It's like, this run is over. We've accomplished everything. And I know that everybody in Fort Lauderdale sitting there saying, yeah, we've won like everything that we've thrown our heads into. What you've got in year 1, you got the Leagues Cup. You got Leagues Cup. You're in the hemispheric conversation. You're in the hemispheric tournament of champions, where anything is possible. But that's what the Moss brothers and Messi and friends want. They want to be shown in that, and they want to be shown in that tournament. They want to be that hemispheric brand. They want to be that worldwide brand. If they were to win the CONCACAF Hemispheric Championship, then they go to Club World Cup. That's what they're looking at. But what happens 3 years down the line? How do you follow up on what's going on? That's the larger question for me here. All these shiny objects are great for Major League Soccer, great for Apple. That'll get you through year 3, maybe year 4 of your TV deal. What do the Moss brothers do for an encore? What happens when Messi sits? What happens when Jordi Alba and Luis Suarez and Sergi Busquets have to sit for matches because their bodies in their mid-30s sit there and go, yo, fam, timeout. It's going to have to be monitored like nobody's business. When it comes to what you're staring at from Inter Miami, the physios are going to come in huge over the next couple of years. As you attempt to expand your brand, push your limits, push the limits of your stars. You've got guys like Kremoski, and that's great to build from within. But what's the encore? And how do you maintain after round 1? That's the larger question for me. Niall, in the conversation with Michael Head, thinks that there's a chance Almada stays. Tom's been torn on Pineda. Niall is optimistic with Garth Lagerwey at the helm, understandably so. Once again, what we said, what Garth has mentioned from the beginning, short-term pain, long-term gain. You're going to be seeing the egress of the players and chasing after those individuals that you want for long-term sustained success like they had in Seattle. Hutch believes that Muyumba got out of control again last night, needs to work on that if he's going to become the leader we need in the position. Mr. Matrix, not blaming Jay, but both Muyumba and Almada seem to be out of their normal positions covering for Jay, especially early. And I think that comes with game state and getting adjusted to the first 15 to 20 minutes of a game. And I know it's in game 3, and you kind of have to get adjusted on the hop. But that's just we know that Muyumba and Hosechu is that yin and yang that has worked really well. Hosechu is more than happy to be the point guard, be the guy that passes and facilitates, and he'll hang back and he'll be more of the 6 as Tristan Muyumba wants to engage and go forward. That yin and yang is there. That relationship, they kind of know where everybody's going. They know it's like, okay, you do this, I do this. Jay, who has grown into Major League Soccer and doing really well in the midfield for Atlanta United in a game state, when Tristan is used to reacting with Hosechu, has to react to Jay. And that came through in practice, but then game state's obviously something different. And so you're having to get adjusted to that relationship in game state. And so understandably that it would be a little difficult. Will, thought, if Goose is done, who's the 2024 captain? Tom suggesting Brooks. And that's Will's first assumption, but the candidate choice seems thin, honestly, him or Gigi. Well, and then the question is, when it comes to that particular individual and captain, it might be Brooks. If you wanted it to be Gigi, do you want your striker to add to the duties of being captain? And obviously Gigi would have no issue with it, but would you want him to just focus on doing what he's doing in game state and, not jumping into discussions with center refs and things like that on a game by game basis? And then there are some folks that just in general look at team captains to be other than your goalkeepers, because the goalkeeper's all the way at the back of the action when you're on offense. And if something happens down in the attacking third or in the attacking half, then you lose the presence of that captain, except in that coming together that happened in, was it the 90th minute when Diego Rossi decided to sit down and not get a yellow and was told to move and did not move. So you saw Brad, when everybody came together, you saw Brad sprinting all the way down. And that's a captain. I mean, literally, that is what a captain does. Captain backs up his teammates, and Brad has never been afraid to go from one end of the field to the other. But, like I said, it's all conjecture at this point, but it's all based on the idea if Brad decides to come back I think he has 1+1. He's under contract, I think, for 1+1, 1 plus an option. But, when you get to that point, whenever that is your next captain someone who is not your talisman? Is it your keeper all over again? Is it someone else, who has been a part of conversations with center refs in the past? So that's a question going forward. Everybody's like, Brooks, prefer him over Gigi. And I know that so I'm sitting here looking at the conversation of what you guys are saying about giving up Golazos and Brad. Abby, all right, since you mentioned Rocco, let's talk about Rocco for a little bit. And we'll probably get into more in-depth about what was going on in the USL Championship last night. Last night in USL Championship on the Deuce, and they took longer than 90 minutes. Charleston had a lead. Then in the final 10 minutes, Phoenix equalizes. And you end up with a game going an extra 30, no golden goal. And then you go to penalties. Penalties were insane. Penalties were absolutely insane. Where you had you had a Panenka miss to start for Phoenix. Phoenix goes top of the first. Cuello goes Panenka. Trey Muse stands his ground, basically just stands there. He realized that Cuello was going Panenka and stopped. Stopped moving from side to side, stood his ground, stood right there in the middle, easy grab for Trey Muse. Then Muse saves the Phoenix attempt in the top of the second. Charleston had made their first two. The third and the fourth, Rocco comes up big with a save in one of those, if memory serves. And then there was a miss, if I'm not mistaken. So you had it flip where Phoenix converts in frames 3 and 4. Charleston misses in frames 3 and 4. Then you get to frame 5. Phoenix makes, and it's up to Dodson and Rocco in the bottom of the fifth, and it looked like the way that Dotson struck the ball to the far post as we're watching, that it might just hit the post or might be, go off the post, the outside of the post and go away. Rocco was there, had enough of a push, goes off of his glove off the post and away, and Charleston loses at home in penalties in the cruelest way possible, bottom of the fifth. And there's a fantastic shot of Dotson just looking into, basically staring into the air, and all of the Phoenix players running to celebrate with Rocco after the bottom of the fifth. But great way to finish the season for the USL Championship. But yeah, Derek Dotson saved, miss, off the post, bottom of the fifth. And so Derek Dotson's miss in the bottom of the fifth gives the USL Championship to Phoenix Rising. But yeah, Rocco came up with a couple of saves. So Abby up. All right, so keep your thoughts for Abby here. Abby's got a check engine light. Quick stop up coming at an AutoZone to get a close reading. All right, keep your fingers crossed with Abby in the car. But yeah, Rocco came up big. Had a couple of moments in penalties last night as Phoenix Rising makes their way and they win the championship. We'll have Kaylor Hodges on to talk about that match and put a bow on the USL season Thursday morning at 10 Eastern time. Your traffic for the week is about as normal as it's going to get. Like I said, we're going to try to drag Lucas Panzica into the discussion at 9:05 tomorrow morning. We'll talk about the rest of the weekend Major League Soccer. We'll talk about the championship a little bit and if there's any hangovers there. Efforting guests from Phoenix with their win. Efforting guests from Gotham with their win. NWSL game had a crazy ending. We'll get into that either today and tomorrow as we go forward. So we're efforting folks from Gotham, efforting folks from Phoenix. and we'll walk our way through the week. Wednesday at 10, hopefully Dylan Butler can join us. We are efforting guests out of Chattanooga for the 9 o'clock hour on Wednesday because there is an announcement that is happening tomorrow involving Chattanooga FC. I think you can piece things together and figure out what that might be, but it's going to be tomorrow afternoon in Chattanooga. I'm doing the show tomorrow morning from a hotel room in the Chattanooga area because I'm heading up there after activities today. Driving up there, getting settled in, doing the show tomorrow morning from a hotel room in Chattanooga area. Presser for Chattanooga FC tomorrow afternoon. Then driving back. Wednesday is normal. Dylan Butler hopefully joining us at 10. Bart joining us at 10:30 because we got stuff to talk about specifically from the NWSL. And that ending with a position player finishing in net, which was absolutely crazy. So we've got to talk about that play and anything else on Bart's mind, plus everything else involving youth national teams, men's and women's national teams, November setups and friendlies and all of that stuff. Thursday, it is Kaylor Hodges at 10 o'clock. It is Nico Moreno at 10:30. 9:30, hopefully, on Friday morning. We'll catch up with Michael Parkhurst and our friends from Beyond Goals Mentoring, unless he lost the toss. And Greg Garza has to do back-to-back weeks. And then we'll get you ready for the weekend in international play. With won't necessarily be a weekend whip around in a Major League Soccer sense, but it will be a weekend whip around in getting you ready for international play. Also chasing down some folks in the colleges because Mercer makes it to the tournament, winning the SoCon. Then you have Peach Belt champions for Clayton State for the men and Coach Peterson, and Columbus State and the women made it. I think it was Columbus State on the women's side. So we'll chase after those colleges, and also had the Emory pod this past weekend in the Division III that had both Emory and Oglethorpe. Oglethorpe had a 2-0 lead in the nightcap of the doubleheader there at Emory University. And Colorado College, the Tigers came back to score with about 6 minutes to go. They won 3-2 in the opening round. And then before that, Emory beat Brevard 3-0 in the opening game of that particular mini bracket. Colorado College wins the mini bracket, and they get to move on to the round of 16. Both Emory and Oglethorpe surprisingly eliminated in the opening round and second round of the D3 tournament. We'll be chasing after coaches in the college ranks, see if we can get Maddie Cruz to do Soccer's in Session and chase after some college coaches. We'll get that squared away as well. So busy week on a bunch of different fronts, but we'll discuss what's been going on, what's on your mind with Atlanta United and the rest of the league. And we'll talk about, once again, rest of the league and today and tomorrow and news of the morning. We've got to get news in the morning out and gossip, rumor, and innuendo. Premier League had a crazy one. The 4-4 draw with Manchester City and Chelsea. Cole Palmer gets the penalty kick at the death to make it 4-4. And Mauricio Pochettino went nuts, but then he apologized after the fact. So, and if you missed Peter Drury's call, spot on, and that's why he's one of the best in the game. Okay, continuing what you guys have on mind. Tom, to be fair, pretty much every one of those saves right at him. Within his body frame, good kick, sure, but still routines. Came up with a couple of big saves. We're talking about Brad in the second half. Let me get to my timeline here. He had one in the 56th. He had one in the 62nd, which was the big kick save. Defense had to clear it and got a corner out of it with Abram and Miles being there to help defend as well. And then there was one in the 72nd. It was a big save on Cucho, and Cucho got saved again in the next minute. So Brad ended up with 4 big saves. Oh, I haven't gone through the numbers, courtesy of our friends at SofaScore. So getting into the team numbers with our friends at SofaScore and laying down what happened last night. Your lineups for Columbus, and this was the first big change that we noticed. Schulte in net, back three of Amundsen, Camacho, Morera, Yaya Boa, and Mo Farsi were changes. Farsi in, Gressel out. Farsi better defensively, The first two matches in this series, Julian Gressel was exposed defensively and really wasn't all that productive offensively. Wilfred Nancy brings in Mo Farsi, who does things a little differently. Does things more on a ground-based attack than Julian Gressel does through the air and trying to work in crosses. Took a little while for Atlanta United to adjust to what Farsi was as a presence and what he was trying to do. Farsi, Nagbe, Morris, Yayaboa, Rossi, Matan, and Cucho Hernandez. The numbers on the day for Atlanta United, Yorgis up top had a 7.5. Shande had a 6.3. Thiago had a 7.1. Saba had a 6.7. Muyumba with the yellow had a 6.4. Jay had a 6.9 with a yellow. And we mentioned at the back, Caleb a 6.3. Luis Abraham a 5.9, obviously, with all the goals that were allowed. Miles a 6.1. Brooks Lennon a 7.5. And Brad a 6.2. Stats on the day. It was one of my details in my matches here. I'm trying to see what it looks like here. And it's like they're not telling me. It's like they ain't telling me. Okay, so Columbus. Here we go. Finally. All right. Columbus, XG 1.8 to 1.5. Ball possession 53% to Atlanta over the time frame of the full 90 minutes. 21 shots to 11, 8 on target to 4. 6 blocks for Columbus, 6 blocked shots for Columbus, 2 for Atlanta United. Atlanta United had more corner kicks. Columbus was offside more. Fouls a little high for Armando Villarreal and his numbers on average, 15 each, 30 in the match. Atlanta 3 yellow cards to 2. Free kicks 15 to 14. Double the throw-ins, 7 to 5 on goal kicks. Big chances, obviously, 5 for Columbus, 3 for Atlanta United. Missed 3 big chances. Each team hit the woodwork once. Counterattacks with shots, 2-0 for Atlanta United. Shots inside the box, 14-9 Columbus, 7-2 outside the box. Brad was officially listed as 4 saves and 2 saves for Schulte. Atlanta operated 85% in their passing game, 417 of 491. Columbus 83% with 48 less pass attempts and 48 less completions. Long balls 33 to 20 for Atlanta and crosses 8 to 3 on the day. On the dribble, it was Columbus 12 of 18, 67%, Atlanta 6 of 10. Duels won basically 41 to 79, so like 51% of the duels won by Columbus. Atlanta won 9 of the 13 in the air, by the way. Tackles, even at 10. Interceptions, Atlanta had more at 14 to 9. And so, of course, nothing like SofaScore resetting while I'm in the middle of reading statistics. 18 clearances to Columbus. A lot of those coming as Atlanta was trying to push to narrow the margins late in the second half at 18 to 14. So those were the numbers courtesy of our friends at SofaScore on the day, with Columbus getting the Duke over Atlanta by the score of 4-2. And that sets up Columbus and Orlando, and that sets up Cincinnati and Philadelphia. I still wish they would reseed, though. I mean, because in the West, it's crazy. You ask with Houston and KC, that's a 4 and an 8, and then Seattle and LAFC out west as well on Sunday the 26th. 25th is your Saturday matches doubleheader. Sunday is your Western doubleheader, and we'll see if we can effort some guests between now and then to talk international window and then things like that as we go forward. Getting back into your comments on the day. Tom wanted to know when Major League Soccer will announce any rule changes. We kind of joke about it, but it's probably going to be somewhere in the offseason, pretty close to the beginning of the regular season. That just seems to fit form. They kind of dropped it on the PA with the change of the playoff format. I'm sure that the MLS Players Association will have issues if anything else like that happens again. So we'll see what happens there. Tom says using the one sure DP available on the best center mid you can find. And let's see, like what you guys are discussing between one another, Michael, in our college football down here discussion. No iron ball talk. I don't need the negativity. I'll be there with the boss. That's going to be an interesting one. And yes, Michael, it is true that and M, $M, has more money than God, and that's why they aren't flinching when it comes to paying, and they'll find a way to write it off. I mean, we have a 4-hour Regents meeting. You'll find a way to write it off, no question. And that $76 million, you'll find a way to sit there and take money from here, put it to here, and you'll write it all off. And they'll probably bring in somebody. Urban Meyer, I'd seen as a name yesterday for Texas A&M. A lot of different dudes were there that were named, but Dan Campbell, former Texas A&M tight end, Mike Elko, a former assistant who's done wonders at Duke. Names are out there for this one, but we'll see. Need 2 center backs, assuming Miles leaves, of course, but if you get the 4th, he'd use one of them there. Niall, Tiago, arguably, if I could get my tongue to work, best player in Major League Soccer and no rush to sell. Let's see. I think Michael was thinking Gazan and typing Malzahn. I mean, Wiley, there's no reason to be tired about being optimistic. I mean, you win a championship, you're optimistic about repeating. You make a deep run in the playoffs, you're optimistic about taking that next step. You don't have to be tired of being optimistic. I think that there's a lot that you can sit there and take from this season and apply it forward with the knowledge of a front office with a full training camp with a front line that you have. Players getting healthy like a Tyler Wolff, seeing what he was able to do on the left, seeing what Edwin Mosqueda could do. I mean, a lot of folks, obviously, we were discussing what happened with the loan picture and having to loan out Miguel Ibarra because you needed to clear out a roster spot. And I know that everybody, well, not everybody, but most folks were sitting there and had the thought bubbles over their head and the question marks about Edwin Mosqueda. We've seen what Edwin Mosqueda can do. Once again, healthy, regular reps. You've got the young players coming up. Yes, there are questions, and I'm not dismissing the questions that we have about defense, the back line, those kinds of things. But there is, in a very, very tough Eastern Conference, and the Eastern Conference was a bear. It was far more competitive than the Western Conference was this season. In a very, very tough conference, you could take the teams away from Orlando and Philly. And I think a lot of the times, you got to see what any of those teams against any of the other teams could do. 3 through 7 in the Eastern Conference is a street fight. And so now, knowing that, you take that information, okay, what can we do to make ourselves better, to improve in that street fight and try to climb the standings in 2024? Hutch needs to start pitching a retirement program to Raheem Sterling. Well, I mean, after the match that he had on the weekend and getting back at his old team, he might want to stay at Chelsea for a bit. And you know that Todd Bowley will probably throw like $11 billion at him to stay. He will overpay to keep any player that is temporarily doing well and giving Chelsea wins. You know that he'll overpay to bring somebody in. You'll overpay to keep somebody so they're not lost to another league. Rich, rough idea. When did the schedule come out? All right, so let's go back. 2023 MLS schedule release. Let's see when that happened. So that way we could go backward and kind of guess. My guess is early January or late December. Just before Christmas. Okay, so as a rule, last year, it was just before Christmas. So I guess I know what we're doing just before Christmas this year, other than National Signing Day. So 2022, it was December 20th, 2022 was when the 2023 schedule was released. So we have basically 5 weeks, if you compare your notes, 5 weeks-ish before we look at the season openers. And you know how Major League Soccer will sit there and go, season opener for television on Apple TV. It'll be Inter Miami and somebody. And they'll do a standalone. It'll be a massive party. And let's see. All right, so let's extrapolate here. Who could Inter Miami play in that opening game? Probably would play the defending MLS champs. Is probably what they would do. So whoever wins the MLS trophy this year, you're probably on notice about 10 days later that you're going to be playing Messi and friends, probably in Fort Lauderdale at the expanded pseudo DRVP NK Stadium. Or maybe you play him at Hard Rock. Maybe you do. Maybe you play him at Marlins Park if the weather's a little wet. So I would probably venture a guess that Messi and friends in Fort Lauderdale in front of a sold-out house would play the MLS Cup champions. So we've got about 5 weeks to figure that one out. That's just me thinking off the top of my head. Once again, if anything else on your mind as we go through Atlanta and okay. All right, so update from Abby. Good to drive. Hitting the mechanic after unloading when you're home 4.5 hours. So that means that you are Knoxville-ish. I'm trying to think of Columbus. So Columbus would be that way. So this sounds like that you are just around Knoxville trying to get home. Just get home. Get home safely. You know that you have all of okay, so you're in Kentucky. So that would be, is that Campbellsville? I'm trying to remember Knoxville's 3 hours. So an hour north. That's like Danville. Well, no, Danville is a little off. But I'm trying to remember my old NAIA football. But yeah, you're in the mountains there. But see, now you're near the Buc-ee's. You got to grab breakfast, or at least you would have had breakfast. But now it sounds like Campbellsville, Kentucky, Richmond, Kentucky. Okay, just be safe. Get home. Just get home in one piece. So yeah, you go like Knoxville, and then you go into the mountains up La Follette, and you're into the mountain range up in there, and yeah. So that's yeah. I've been on that run before. Definitely have been on that run before. So just be safe getting home. Anticipated return time, let's say 5 hours because of pit stops. So 10 and 5 is 15. So about 3:30, 4 o'clock, Abby should be getting home. Everybody keep an eye on Abby as she limps home with a car that's got flashing lights and things. So 3:30, 4 o'clock, keep an eye on Abby as she's coming home. All right. So gossip, rumor, and innuendo, what to watch on TV. Like I said, tomorrow we'll be talking about anything else that's left on your mind. We'll talk about the championship tomorrow and Tuesday. We'll talk about the NWSL tomorrow and Wednesday because of reffing down here and all the chaos that was there. Like I said, we'll try and recruit Lucas Panzica from Nashville SC, their radio play-by-play guy. He'll start the show off tomorrow and get his thoughts about what he thought about the opening round and what the future is in Nashville now that there's been some time for the dust to settle. Does Hani stay? Does Hani go? Do they get a not quite as large bid from the Qatari League? First time bid was there, turned it down, losing the first round of the playoffs. Is it less? We'll see what happens. Abby on the schedule, just hope they get our schedule straight where either the first game or the D-Day decision day game is at home instead of neither or both. Excellent point. Having to travel at the beginning and the end here. You're the traveling schedule. Gee, thanks. Thanks for that. I appreciate that. But yeah, probably about 5 weeks or so before the MLS schedule gets handed out. Here's your gossip for today. Manchester City are interested in Reece James as a long-term replacement for Kyle Walker. That's from The Independent. Kyle Walker signed a 2-year deal. Didn't want to, instead of jumping to Germany, stay with Manchester City. Tell me if you've heard this one before. Saudi Pro League clubs are willing to offer about €100 million for Bruno Fernandes. I'm sure that Manchester United fans like our Drew Dickinson would sit there and say, yeah, don't let it hit you on the way out. We'll take the $100 million. And then the Glazers would proceed to probably pocket it and not put it toward any kind of the debt. Bayern Munich and Alphonso Davies remain a summer target. Bayern Munich's Alphonso Davies remains a summer target for Real Madrid. Liverpool and Spurs will have to pay up to $30 million for Bournemouth defender Lloyd Kelly in the January transfer window. First, if I was Andoni Iraola, I would make sure that you are above the relegation zone before you made any kind of a move like that. Inter Milan interested in Borussia Mönchengladbach's Winsley Botelli, who is 17. Also a target for Everton. Remember, you can't have anybody in your rosters until they're 18. Corinthians midfielder Gabriel Moscardas has been linked with Arsenal, but the 18-year-old Brazilian says Chelsea tried to sign him during the summer. Liverpool has sent scouts to Leeds to follow 17-year-old English midfielder Archie Gray. Spanish winger Nico Williams does not want to leave Bilbao. Will renew his contract with the Spanish club, which would make it tough for Villa to sign him in January. Understandably so. Barca interested in signing 26-year-old Nigerian midfielder Wilfred Ndidi when his contract with Leicester City expires at the end of the year. Sorry, Knicks. Getafe want to extend Mason Greenwood's loan to stay from Manchester United. That's from the three-letter paper, so take the information at your own peril. Sir Jim Ratcliffe, who owns Nice, once again, he's looking to shore up the 25% stake he has with Manchester United, is interested in bringing 17-year-old Swedish midfielder Rooney Bargi to his League One club after he came off the bench to score the winner for Copenhagen against United. Chelsea, Newcastle, and Crystal Palace are also admirers, three-letter paper. And also from the four-letter paper and from Cabeçal to Call It Sky, they are officially writing another article saying that Ratcliffe is close on the $1.3 billion for the 25% stake. Napoli set to sack Rudy Garcia with Igor Tudor, Fabio Cannavaro, or Walter Mazzarri, the possible options to replace him. Former Spain, Chelsea, Arsenal midfielder Cesc Fabregas was appointed as the new Como head coach in his first senior managerial role. Fabrizio Romano had it as a going to be. He was appointed this morning. Chelsea looking to sign a forward in January despite Nicholas Jackson scoring 4 goals in his last his past 2 Premier League games. 22 years old, 4 goals, last 2 games. That's your numbers. Pep Guardiola says he would never block one of his players moving to a rival, which could pave the way for Calvin Phillips to join Liverpool or Newcastle. Arsenal could offer Emile Smith-Rowe in a cash plus player swap with Villa for Douglas Luiz. That's the early round of gossip. Let's see if anybody else has decided to add to that this morning after the early rounds of stuff. And we'll see what the papers have to say other than what we've talked about so far. So, okay, was Taylor right to award Chelsea and the Man City penalties? So, okay, we could add that to reffing down here. Cole Palmer, Rico Lewis, and Konsa called up to the England squad. Let's see if there's anything else, because I'm scanning before I hit the papers. Transfer Center, once again, says Fabregas confirmed. Dortmund's Brandt. Julian Brandt is a target for both Arsenal and Newcastle, according to the Sunday Mirror. Newspaper claims a summer move is more likely than a January one. But the Gunners and the Magpies keen on the 27-year-old as they look to strengthen in the wide positions. He's in his 5th season at Dortmund after having signed from Bayer Leverkusen for £22 million back in 2019 under contract at the club. And this is a typo. Typo from our friends at Sky. They say he's under contract at the club until 2016. I would imagine that under contract until he is a 20-year-old. It's kind of difficult. I'm guessing what they mean to say is 2026. So Cesc Fabregas confirmed as the interim manager of Como. Paths separated between Como 1907 and Moreno Longo. And so Cesc Fabregas is going to be the interim there. Lower division sacking, Woking sacked Darren Sarl after 8 losses in a row. We mentioned Rudy Garcia and his possible sacking as well. Mikel Arteta is urging Aaron Ramsdale not to make a quick decision on his future after England manager Gareth Southgate told the keeper he couldn't promise him a place at Euro 2024 if he remains on the bench at Arsenal. 25-year-old's been ousted because of David Raya coming in from Brentford. We knew that was coming. played just twice since the September international break. Arteta has not spoken to Ramsdale about the issue, but warned against a January move in a quest to find first-team football. Erik ten Hag has denied suggestions of a falling out with Rafael Varane, explaining that Harry Maguire deserves the starts due to his improved form. And Emma Hayes, and we'll get into this as well. Emma Hayes in the Women's Super League had her press conference. Okay, so we'll do more of this with Bart. So Bart's list is getting larger and larger for reffing down here in the Soccer for US POD visit at Wednesday at 10:30. Emma Hayes says at her Women's Super League presser that the time is right to leave Chelsea, but did not comment on her next role when she leaves the club at the end of the season. So interesting stuff there from Emma Hayes. Yeah, it was Abby definitely wants Austin or St. Louis this year. For road trips, absolutely. Absolutely. Would love it. Since Austin has been here, the idea of going to Q2, get your tickets early because they don't exist, and you better get a parking pass or take an Uber. St. Louis for me would be a weekend. St. Louis for me, traveling to St. Louis would be an absolute weekend, and I would enjoy that because, and once again, I blame John T. Edge for a lot of this stuff. But I don't know if a lot of you are taking a peek at the show True South on the SEC Network. But John T. and Wright Thompson have done amazing work in letting us know all about the culture of the South and just going to pockets that we never would have dreamed of, and what food means and what civilization means and what fellowship means and growth and how we're growing in the South as a portion of the United States. They did a St. Louis episode because of St. Louis and Missouri being in the SEC. And so they said True South, and it had an asterisk on it. And they went through St. Louis and found some amazing places to eat. Amazing places to eat. And so I've got to get the list down. I've got to rewatch the episode first and foremost. Then I'm going to find out what those places are and end up going there for St. Louis. So, Abby, I'm right there with you. Austin or St. Louis would be great. She has filled up at the Buc-ee's, hopefully in Richmond, Kentucky, hopefully just getting home, like I said, around 3:30 or so. Just hands on the wheel, get home safe, no more stops. That's what we got our fingers crossed for you today. Trust me, fingers crossed definitely for today. So yeah, Bart's rundown on Wednesday is getting pretty full. Nympha Berkimas became the youngest. It was the youngest American at the U17 World Cup since Freddie Adu led the team to a 3-1 win over South Korea. In 2003, Freddie Adu scored 3 goals to lead the U.S. to a 6-1 win over South Korea in the opening game of the U17 World Cup in Finland. They're in Indonesia. And so if you want to get up early and watch the U17 World Cup, you can. I think it's on Telemundo. We'll check the listings and get that squared away. Berkimas scored 2 goals very, very early Sunday morning, involved in a third. U.S. beat South Korea in their opening game in Indonesia. U.S. opened the scoring with Aiden Horangi. South Korea hit the post twice. But you end up with Berkimas, who's from Burundi, who lived here in Atlanta before moving to High Point, North Carolina, played for North Carolina Fusion, joined the Charlotte FC Academy, signed a homegrown deal late in 22, 8 games for Crown Legacy. You saw Berkimas go up against Atlanta United 2 in MLS Next Pro. 15 years, 267 days, the 4th youngest player to score for the U.S. at the U.S. World Cup, U17 World Cup behind Freddie Adu, Imad Baba in 89, Jason Moore in 93. Didn't take part in qualifying, playing with the U.S. 15s and U16s before being called up for late preps. And in Jakarta, Berkimas scored in the 7th and the 73rd. You had a goal from Medina in the 49th in front of 4,300 there in Indonesia. So Gonzalo Segares leading the team into a new round of the U17. So very, very cool. But keep an eye on Berkimas. Charlotte, don't mess this up. Unless you want to deal him to maybe Atlanta. Just a thought. Don't mess this up with Berkimas. Talent. All right, so FS2 is part, and there are a lot of different networks that are housing the U17 World Cup. Spain and Mali was on at 4 a.m. Uzbekistan and Canada was on at 7. That's an FS2. Fox Deportes has the Liga Nacional from Honduras tonight at 8, Real España and Vida. Universo also simulcasting. They had Spain, Mali, and then their 7 o'clock match was Indonesia and Panama. Fox Soccer Plus had Morocco, Ecuador at 4 a.m., Indonesia and Panama at 7. Paramount Plus has a doubleheader, 2 matches available in the Argentine Primera tonight. Sarmiento and San Lorenzo is the nightcap at 8:45. Instituto and Baracas Central, that is on at 7 o'clock tonight. So you've seen the places where you can watch the U17 World Cup, and the next opportunity to see the United States is going to be Wednesday morning at 4 a.m. in front of none of us as they take on Burkina Faso at 4 a.m. But FS1, FS2, Telemundo, Universo, Fox Soccer Plus, all of those places, like at 4 a.m. and at 7 a.m., if you're up really, really early, you can keep an eye on the U17 World Cup in Indonesia. And the Division I men's soccer selection show. We mentioned what was been going on in Division II and Division III and such. Monday afternoon, 1 o'clock. So 2 hours from now, NCAA.com, you get your Division I's platform. You get your Division I selection show when it comes to seeing where Mercer perhaps will be going and taking a peek at that. The Division II selection show. Nothing like having something in the wow. Nothing like having an immediate pop-up ad to end the show. Monday, 7 o'clock. So Division I selection show is at 1 o'clock this afternoon, NCAA.com. Division II selection show is at 7 o'clock tonight, NCAA.com. And this is where we might have to be on the hop to try to catch up with our folks from the Peach Belt. First round games, Thursday or Friday. Quick turn, Thursday or Friday with everybody there in the grid. Franklin Pierce beat CSU Pueblo last season to get the title in NCAA Division II. So out of the other papers, once again, avoiding the 3-letter and the 4-letter papers as we always do. Pep Guardiola insists he has no problem with Mauricio Pochettino after the Chelsea head coach failed to shake his hand after the 4-4 draw. Crystal Palace sporting director Dougie Friedman is reportedly being targeted for a major role in Sir Jim Ratcliffe's shakeup at Manchester United. We mentioned the move on Julian Brandt. Former Premier League star John Joe Shelby, he's apparently having a bit of a career renaissance at Rizespor. Scored from his own half over the weekend. So keep an eye on that one, because that one I think is that's all over the YouTubes and things like that. So keep an eye on that. England Daily Express, England manager Gareth Southgate has warned the government that their plans for an independent regulator for football could become the new VAR and will cause confusion among stakeholders. Thiago Silva's 15-year-old son could be the key to his father extending his contract at Chelsea by a further year, which would make him 40. Manchester United boss Eric Ten Hag has reportedly left staff stunned by working 12-hour days to fix their woeful form. Chelsea reportedly set to cut Andre Santos' loan spell with Nottingham Forest short, with the Brazilian team having been handed just 7 minutes of Premier League football since arriving at City Ground. And Sir Jim Ratcliffe is going to follow Liverpool's lead by opting to redevelop the Old Trafford Stadium instead of building a new one. Daily Telegraph, Pochettino apologized to Guardiola, Anthony Taylor, and officials for crossing the limit at the end of the 4-4 draw. Jude Bellingham has given England cause for concern before their remaining Euro 2024 qualifiers after missing Real Madrid's La Liga match on Saturday night because of a shoulder injury. Carlo Ancelotti alluded to Bellingham not being ready for the Euros. Scottish Sun, Graham Carey admits it was fate he'd score St. Johnstone's winner against Ross County. The Irishman had a second-half strike to lift them off the foot of the Premiership just days after it was revealed his wife is battling breast cancer for a 4th time. and a former SPL referee has been left baffled after VAR's failure to intervene after a huge penalty call and Rangers win over Livingston. Also, remember, Celtic thumped Aberdeen for 6 on the weekend. So there's all of that to keep an eye on as well. So safe travels, Abby, to each and every one of you guys. That's a show. Once again, tomorrow we'll try to grab Lucas Panzik out of Nashville to get his thoughts about what happened in the first round of the Nashville not making it out, losing 2 to Orlando. So we'll grab Lucas off the top of the show, and we'll go through NWSL. We'll go through the championship. We'll go through any of the rest of the other news that we didn't hit today. Stuff going on in New England. Article in the Blazing Musket that we've got to get into about what's going on with the coaches and the front office there and the whole Bruce Arena stuff. And we'll go over anything else that's on your mind from Atlanta United. So very, very busy Tuesday. Wednesday across the board will be incredibly busy. Announcement in Chattanooga Tuesday afternoon. We'll be up there for that. Hopefully we'll have some live presence for us in hour number 1 back here in Atlanta. 10 o'clock would be Dylan Butler if he's not chasing after the Planet on Varsity Media. 10:30 would be Bart with all of the reffing down here and national team stuff that we'll be getting into as well. Thursday, Nico Moreno at 10:30, Kaylor Hodges at 10 o'clock to put a bow on the championship in the USL seasons, and maybe a bit of a preview going forward. And then Friday, standard Friday show, our friends from Beyond Goals, hopefully at 9:30, and getting you ready for the international weekend at 10 o'clock and getting you ready for all the news that's fit to print. So another busy week. Thanks for hanging out with us today. And we will get back at it again tomorrow. Thanks to Jarrett for dropping in for hour number 1 to get his thoughts. Once again, we'll have thoughts tomorrow about Atlanta United. And if there's any moves, obviously, we'll let you know about all that kind of stuff as well as we get ready for player moves, probably a lot of player moves, and we'll see what happens with the roster build going forward. But that is a Monday here at SDH. Thanks for hanging out with us here as you always do. For everybody here at SDH, I'm just John. Played safe, everybody. Mucho plot, y'all. Since it's the end of the show, that means I get to do this. Played safe. We'll do it again tomorrow, 9:05 Eastern.